Hi folks, Chris Voss here from the ChrisVossShow.com, the ChrisVossShow.com. Hey, we're coming here with another great podcast with an excellent guest that I'm super excited to have today. And we'll get to that in a second, but be sure to subscribe, hit that bell notification button on YouTube. Be sure to get all the notifications for all the wonderful podcasts we do. Go to patreon.com/Chris Voss, and also go to iTunes, Google Play, and also now on TuneIn. You can subscribe to the podcast, download it, share it with your friends, neighbors, dogs, cats, cousins, share it with everybody, and all that good stuff. So thanks to everyone for tuning in. Now, today I've got a really cool guest. He's one of the few intelligent people that I've been proud to collect and call as a friend, at least a friend on Facebook. Hopefully I'll get him to know him better after this. Steve Faktor. He is the heretic CEO at IdeaFaktory, factory with a K.com, and he's the innovation host of themicfuture.com, which is his podcast, and he's a future economics, tech, culture writer, Forbes Tech, LinkedIn influencer, Harvard business. This guy does it all. We're going to talk about all the really cool things he does. Steve, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks, Chris. A pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure.
I've never been
I've followed you on Facebook and the stuff, and you put so much intelligent Einstein-like writing and ideas and concepts and build into the stuff that you share online. I after reading your stuff, I always feel like I'm a second grader with the posts that I make.
And whenever I write and post this stuff, I feel like I'll never work again because, I think that's the price you pay these days for actually having an opinion that might differ from whatever the cultural climate or norm is.
Yeah, we've been having a lot of discussion lately about Outrage Nation and how sometimes you can't win any of these arguments, especially online.
Yeah, and there's really no point to it because the people who are most likely to argue online are people that have the mind that is most closed in a lot of cases. So, they're looking for reinforcement. And then, it's interesting. I thought of this little thought experiment the other day while on the subway. If you did an experiment and only read AP News for the entire week. Now, AP is as dry and straight-laced as you could imagine, right? So if you only read that, I bet you your reactions would be nowhere near as vitriolic or angry or frustrated or euphoric as when you read something polarizing. So if you're reading or listening to someone's opinion who's really like in your face and super polarizing, your response tends to be of equal measure in the opposite direction. What is that saying? Every action prompts an equal and opposite reaction. And so I think that's what we're experiencing. So the more you polarize one thing, the more I guess the term is radicalized the other side gets in their argument.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly is an interesting thing that's going right now where social media has turned into this thing, and I've seen you talk about it, where people are just hunting for validation of their ideas or stream ideas and corralling themselves around with people that, have their same sort of horse blinders, if you will.
Well, and the platforms are structured for this because basically they're feeding you what you want, not what you need. It's basically, look, you eat a bag of M&Ms, you'll technically feel full, but you won't be nourished. And so they're in the business of feeding you M&Ms because you're going to keep coming back and getting more and more M&Ms. So they're not in the broccoli business. We want them to do broccoli, but they, as a business, without regulation and without other barriers, have no incentive to do that.
And you speak to something that's really true, and sometimes I wonder where the fault lies, whether it's with Facebook or with ourselves. It probably is just with ourselves, but I've seen some experiments. There was a gentleman who did TED Talks, and he was an African-American gentleman, and he decided to make a fake profile and become a white supremacist sort of dude so he could try and understand what they were doing. And of course, the way he played edge rank by his likings and everything else of Facebook, Facebook started just feeding him that sort of white supremacist stuff. I just read I think it was in the Atlantic, there's a writer that just put out an article out recently where she spent 3 weeks listening to Fox News nonstop. And she could see the bias in it, but she's like, you know what, after 3 weeks, you really start believing it. You really start believing the conspiracies and all the stuff. It just hammers right into your head.
Well, it's funny because, you know, I think both sides, and you know, it's tough to say both sides because I actually think there's multiple sides here, because I think there's the Infowars crackpot side of the spectrum, you know, and then there's the left-wing crackpot, you know, like where you know, Russia conspiracies, and you know, maybe Russia certainly had a hand in things, but I think they're just as prone to conspiracies now as the right wing used to be with Obama and his birth certificate and all, you know, so everyone is just pushed to the fringe. They're like pinned to the walls of the fringe. And so the only people left that are sane are being drowned out because they're not as vociferous. You know, they just want to go about their day and just have a normal life, and they can't because people are just pulling them to these extremes.
Yeah, and Facebook just controls what you get. Speaking of, just a side note on Infowars, what's kind of interesting is the other day I was bashing what's his name, Alex Jones on Infowars. His wife, or I suppose his profile with his wife, it looks valid.
Ex-wife, I think.
Ex-wife, yeah, contacted me and she wanted to be on the show, and I was just kind of like, I don't know if I got enough lawyers to defend Alex Jones suing me before we get the show.
Oh, I would love that. I would pay money to see that. That woman knows where the bodies are buried.
Evidently, she has a divorce gag order. I think that there would be some violations there, but she's out fishing around, evidently trying to get enough people around her to counteract him, which is interesting. There's some other things I know about the background of people that have NDAs that I can't talk about that give me an interesting history of both those people, but I guess I can't really talk about that. So, well, so who's at fault? Is it us at fault, Steve, for not being able to go, hey, I need to broaden my horizons? Is it Facebook at fault? Do we need to crucify Mark Zuckerberg and pin him to a wall?
Well, look, I live by the same philosophy pretty much across the board, whether it comes to social media or work or anything else. My first port of call is look within. Because when I saw those fake ads that they posted of what Russia supposedly bought, they looked ridiculous. If you're falling for that, it's not Russia's fault. It's yours. You're validating or tapping into something incredibly crazy inside of you that makes you empathize or sympathize with these sentiments, the terrible fonts, the awful pictures, the bad grammar, the whole thing, and the empty provocativeness of these posts. They are completely empty. So if you're falling for that, and by the way, it happens on both sides, or whatever, all sides, let's just say, it's you. Look within yourself first. So I think, yes, we have certain fundamental weaknesses as individuals. And so companies, especially social media companies and food companies and brands like Apple, everyone is now learning how to play on our human frailties. So do we try to change them and change the world, or do we toughen ourselves up to become more resistant to those influences? So I would say let's start there first. And yes, if you've done everything you possibly could and these guys are still circumventing all of your defenses, then maybe, you know, we should look at more regulation and other things. But I do think that we have a lot of the power, just as we do with smoking, just as we do with drugs and drinking and all these other things. But sometimes it gets to a point where we lose control. So you need help. And so is that help going to come from government? I don't know, because I don't think our government is particularly good at identifying and solving problems.
Yeah, it's interesting to me when the trolls and I guess these weren't the Russian trolls. There were people that were just making money off of Facebook. Someone sent me some videos, and there's a way to make money off of Facebook by making these fake news websites. and just getting mass traffic to them, especially during the political election cycles. And a lot of these guys that I saw the interviews with that were doing the fake news that were in America, that were Americans. And in a lot of cases, it was kind of funny. They claimed to be Democrats, but they were trolling. They thought they were trolling the Republicans. And they found in their A/B testing that Democrats, when they saw fake news, would actually go fact check and they wouldn't fall for it. But they found that the GOP folks, at least on the extremist side, would fall for it hook, line, and sinker and eat it up. And they were making, $20,000 a month or more making these fake news sites and driving them using Facebook's and algorithms. And so I've always kind of wondered, without trying to be, biased, as to why that balance is there between those two parties.
If I had to guess, a lot of it probably correlates to levels of education. That's not to say there aren't lots of, no, I mean, look, there's probably lots of really brilliant GOPers. There are. I mean, you look at people like Dennis Prager, you look at Steven Crowder, you look at Ben Shapiro. These are super intelligent people who you may disagree with, but you can't argue that they're well reasoned in their arguments and very eloquent. Now, in terms of the proportion of the population that's maybe undereducated or has a high school degree versus a college degree. I mean, they're probably, but there's plenty of ignorance on the left. You see all these people shutting down free speech and all these speakers on college campuses screaming them down when, calling Ben Shapiro a Nazi. The guy wears a yarmulke, so we're really talking about levels of insanity that we're reaching on both sides where people have to really calm down.
I'm wondering, what do you see the future as being? Do you see it as more extreme and vitriolic, or do you see us calming down?
I think we're going to get through it. I think these are growing pains. I think we're all adjusting to a level of public engagement, a level of access to people, a level of power, public power that has never existed in the history of mankind. And so we are basically just like, like a baby will touch the flame or, like fall off the counter of the couch or whatever, they don't know, they're still kind of working out their muscles and how to walk and how to do all these things. That's us right now. This technology is advanced way beyond our biology's ability to handle it and deal with it. And so we're just babies trying to figure all this stuff out. So I think we're going to go through these and it's not going to be just one period. It's going to be multiple periods because the technology evolves so quickly that we're forced to adapt and we're being thrown in, just like, like you throw a kid into the pool, go, okay, try to swim. And yeah, hopefully you'll still rescue them. But we're at that point where we're flailing around in the pool trying to learn how to swim. And so I think, for example, like the public shaming where all these people are getting fired for, some infraction, like the lady who gave the finger to the Trump cavalcade and all these other people that are getting fired for whatever it is on the right or left wing. I think all of them are, sort of, let's put it this way. This won't come out exactly right, but they're I don't want to say Rosa Parks, a much lesser inadvertent version of people who are taking the brunt of the social change that is coming. So someone will go to jail, someone will get fired, and in the past, people got shot. Martin Luther King got shot because of the being on the forefront of this change. So we're seeing just the latest set of victims on the trail to that next better place, and so I think we'll get there. And I think what we'll see is one thing we'll come to terms with is no one is innocent. And when we realize that, when you join a mob to get somebody fired or because they said something wrong in a tweet, and then, mobs can't be controlled. That's why they're called mobs. They're not called lovely, dance troops.
Organized,
they're mobs. Yeah, exactly. So you can't control it. So eventually the mob comes for you. And I think once it comes for enough people and enough people that you know or like or enjoy in entertainment start getting fired, I think people are going to start having empathy and realizing that there's such a thing as forgiveness and second chances and kindness. So I think we'll get there. But right now, people are just kind of airing their fury, which realistically, I think a lot of times is anger at themselves for whatever failures they have, or dissatisfaction, or maybe depression they have in their lives, and they're externalizing it. They're saying, you are my cause. So you look at it on the right, and you have, it's the Mexicans, it's the Chinese and their trade deals, it's the Muslims, and then you look at it on the left, it's the corporations, it's the millionaires and the billionaires. It's, so everyone is looking to externalize, or it's Nazis, or whatever the hell you're blaming. So everyone is externalizing blame for things that may not be going right in their lives, or maybe things that they could have done better to improve their state in life.
So let me offer this thing, and this is my theory, but I'm always open to new ideas. My theory is that we've been, and I like your theory better, but my theory is that the middle class has been wiped out. We've been driven to this point of where people feel so much desperation in their lives, economically, government-wise. They've reached that point of, the guy in the Network movie where they're just like, can you just leave me alone with my radial fucking tires and my TV show, and it's all I can handle right now. And they're beyond that point, and they're sick and tired. And this is their way of going to the window in the movie Network. I'm sure you remember that scene where he said, go to your windows and scream, I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore. And so that's been my theory, and I like your theory. I think I'm going to evolve that in my head. But that's my theory of what's going on right now. And I was talking with people last night that we may just be slowly moving to a French Revolution sort of thing, where we take all the oligarchs out and break out the guillotine. And certainly, I mean, you see with this recent tax law, they're just yelling, there's no bread, let them have cake. But I do love your theory that we're fumbling through this shit show era of trying to understand this technology and adapt it. It's gotten way far ahead of us. I would really love to see the end of the light of that tunnel, if it's possible, sometime soon.
Well, and you know what? There may not be an end to that, because technology is moving so quickly. We're going to hit these levels each time, because you're going to create unrest. So, for example, a next tier of unrest might be when self-driving cars come to be, and all these people hit the unemployment lines, or get pushed out of the workforce. There'll be another one with robots. There'll be another one for white-collar workers with AI. So there's going to be these periods of unrest that happen with big shifts in technology. So, just like the recession after the .com bust, just like the recession after during George W. Bush's term, all these things there, we hit these walls periodically. And now we're just in this social media mire where people are now shouting at each other and just have these capabilities they've never had before. So I think it's a progression. Hopefully, I mean, who knows, we'll get better at dealing with these things, because I think you're right in what you said earlier. There's a mismatch between where the economy is going and where our tax system, where our laws are right now, because they're lagging badly. And even so, our biology is lagging, our legal structures are lagging, while technology and the economy and jobs and companies are just pulling ahead into some other place.
I was reading about how AI is really going to wipe out a lot of jobs, and we haven't stopped breeding in this country, so there's always more people that need more jobs. And the discussion has been for years with us in the technology field is how many people are going to have to be retrained, how many of these steel workers are going to have to learn a new skill, learn to code and whatever. And of course, we just saw the huge pushback from the Rust Belt, iron workers dragging us back, or clawing us back, if you will. And Let me ask you this: Is Trump a symptom of what we're going through right now? A dysfunctional symptom? Uh, how did Trump come out of all this shit show? That your theory of we're dealing with this new technology that we just cannot handle.
Yeah, I think Trump is absolutely a symptom. To treat him as anything other than that is a misdiagnosis, in my view. I think he is an FU vote. It's basically, I don't think whatever this is, this system, this economy, the absence of jobs, whatever it is that is not working for you, he is the FU vote. If you're voting for him, you're like saying, you know what, I don't trust this other person. I mean, for some people, it's a vote against Hillary. For other people, it's an FU vote. And there is a percentage of people that legitimately believe him. But I think it's an overwhelmingly small percentage. I think it's probably no more than 20% of the total population or the voter population, and maybe a third of Republicans. I think the rest just said, you know what can we lose?
And I really love your idea. I'm glad I talked to you today, because I like your idea a little bit better than my idea of the economic and the wiping out of the middle class, as to how we're going through this fumbling process of getting this technology that has seriously outpaced us, and of course AI will make it worse. But and here's this guy, and really what they've done is they've done a clawback. I mean, Trump is just an empty vessel vehicle that they've thrown up, who played to them. But they're really doing a clawback to us, and saying, we don't like this technology, we don't like the future, we want to go fucking back to 1950. And it to me, I guess it's part of that whole struggle of us trying to manage this whole thing.
Yeah, and look, there's always this pendulum effect where, you know, society or cultural changes move so quickly that people go, okay, we're not ready for this yet. You know, like trans rights and all this other stuff. There's a percentage of population like, whoa, wait a minute, we're still understanding gay marriage. You know, we're processing this. Don't throw up this new thing. So I think there is this sort of natural ebb and flow where, you know, sometimes the liberal or the progressive side, you know, advances things or pulls things so quickly that the rest just need time to take a breath and catch up. So I think that part of it is just that.
This is why I love you, Steve. You think of some brilliant stuff, man. So basically, I mean, we went through this with the civil rights, and it was hard, you know, and some people were way ahead of it. When you saw what's his face, the governor of Georgia, I think it was, in Birmingham, standing in front of the school door so the little black girl couldn't get in.
Yeah.
Certainly people, you know, they have a hard time with change. Maybe it's our inherent resistance to change, as a society as a whole, as a being of one. But I love your idea. You know, you mentioned something earlier when we were talking about the outlay of this theory, that, you know, people attack other people online, and then sometimes they have to be attacked to realize where they're at. One of my friends who just went through a catharsis and a public crucifixion, actually now regrets in the past, well knowing that he had some skeletons in his closet, attacking other people online for the same sins that he knew in his closet he had done, and attack multiple people online with the mob, you know, join the mob, fuck that dude. And in the meantime, knowing full well that there were skeletons in the closet that he could be called out for the same violation. And then eventually he got called out for it. And now he kind of regrets the hypocrisy of that whole thing, and has had to deal with his ego and such. So you're very right in that validation that, I mean, maybe enough of us just have to get torched as the monster to finally realize we better be.
No, it's true. And you know, so I think a couple of things are happening. So I think that realization, you know, what was it? What's the biblical phrase? Let he who is without sin cast the first stone. There's a lot of stones being cast, and I guarantee you the casters are not without sin.
Yeah.
So I guarantee, the problem is that they're either allowed to be anonymous because Twitter, wants as many accounts as possible. So, they'll cry their crocodile tears about, or, oh yeah, we're doing everything we can. No, that's bullshit. They want accounts. So,
Yeah.
so Twitter allows you to do that, cast stones without you being impugned. And secondly, a lot of the people casting the stones are nobodies. They're not famous. They have nothing at stake. So you'll end up having someone with like a -2 followers and a blue, whatever that blue head thing is on Twitter, basically taking down someone who, may not be perfect, or maybe even did some terrible things, but they're not going to be subject to the same level of scrutiny ever as that other person. And so not having empathy for that person is really unfortunate, because it's more, to me, indicative of how they feel about themselves than what they feel about this other person that they're willing to torch anonymously. And just one last thing. In the longer term, I think another bigger trend is happening. And this, I think, is potentially more scary, but I'll let you be the judge of that. I think by creating this environment where people can be outed at any point, because look, realistically, someone can hack your data. Someone can, out you on social media. Someone can take you down for anything that you did, either anonymously or publicly, whatever. Over time, the effect that that's going to have is it's going to constrain our range of freedom. And so we are going to all become good little boys and girls, because think about it. Because if we know that God is watching, we're not going to do. And when I say God, I don't mean the God that you may believe in, but I'm talking about the God of technology, which has surrounded you, right? Your friends who might take, or strangers that might take a picture of you, and then that photo gets face recognized on Facebook or on Google, or maybe a data breach, or maybe your employer or somebody else who's outing you for something. So if you look at the net effect of all that, it is building a tighter and tighter fence around what we can do and what our liberties and freedoms are. And that, to me, is the scariest part of this. Now, it may only be scary to me because I know the freedoms of the past. Maybe future generations won't feel that way. And one way to justify that alternative view is if you look at China. So China just implemented the most insane system I've ever seen in my life. It's basically a social network that tracks everything you do online, your finances, your social posts, and it grades you. So just like Equifax back when before the hack, and all these other agencies would track your financial history, they're tracking your financial, your social, your purchasing history, all one, and they're giving you a citizen score. And the culture is submitting to it because their norms are different than ours, and so they're operating in this super tight, narrow box of behavior. And I think we're being boxed in very similarly, just in a different way. Our path to that box is just different than theirs.
Yeah, well, I think we're headed the same way. We're just slowly getting there, right? With a lot of the different things. We already have our government people calling for more control over our internet, and a kill switch where they can kill the internet when they want. Yeah, it's kind of funny. I heard that the Japanese people say that their internet is actually quite fast, considering that at least two people read whatever they've written on the internet before. So it's actually quite fast considering that. But yeah, it's a scary world. One of my friends, with this new sexual harassment thing, one of my friends just casually told somebody at a company that, hey, I'm going through a crisis right now. I can't talk about this right now. I'll have to talk about it later. And that person cut and pasted it and spun it to the mob that, with the mob narrative that, hey, this person's just playing games and they don't really give this any sort of validation, and they're just waiting until the noise dies down, which is far from true, because I watched this person go through their catharsis and really have to come to grips with their own ego, and everything else, AA and all the stuff. and they've had to do their own cleansing. So I've seen them actually, deal with their issues and everything else. But, I've had to, one of my problems is the same problem my friend has. People come to us at events. I'm sure you get the same thing, where they throw themselves at you. They want stuff from you. They think that you have some sort of power that you can give them, and they'll be great too if they hang out with you. I don't know what the hell their deal is. But they throw themselves at you, and whether it's sitting on your lap or hugging you, I've been sexually assaulted so many ways. If I want to call out all the different girls who hit on us at events, it's just insane. And now there's a paranoia amongst all of us, where even some of my close friends have had to look at it and go, "What if that guy will ever screenshot something I say privately in Messenger?" And so, yeah, you're right. The prison's getting pretty tight, and there's going to be a God, but there's almost a paranoia effect to it. That's very big brother.
But the paranoia is what puts you in the box. The paranoia is the box. No, the paranoia is the box. That is the regulator. That's when, like, the thing you would have done before everyone had a phone in their pocket with a camera, the thing you would have done in the 80s or 90s or whatever, you don't do that anymore, so that is the box. That's how the box gets built. It gets built in your mind, not in the outside. There's no one in the physical world that's going to box you in. But next time that person whose motives you may not be sure of approaches you and wants to, make out or do whatever, like, you're going to start saying, well, you know what, I don't know where this will end up. I don't know what their motives are, and I'm not going to do it. So now you've boxed yourself in. Now, it could have been a perfectly normal thing and you could have had a great time, but you won't know, you won't act. Yeah,
because the downside is just so crazy that you don't want to do it. And you're right. I mean, certainly cops acted differently after the Rodney King beating when they realized that people were videotaping. Certainly they act different once you put body cameras on them, we're finding. Some don't, but most do. And body cameras certainly are shining a light. So let's go to the next level of that. Does that really make us better people, Steve? Or are we still really the pieces of shit inside that we always were? We just have a great facade.
That's interesting. It may not always sound this way, but I'm fundamentally an optimist. I wouldn't be working in innovation. Steve. What's that?
I'm sorry, Steve.
You don't buy it?
No, I'm just kidding.
Well, look. I wouldn't be working in innovation, or I wouldn't be trying to build new and better things if I didn't think they would help. So identifying a problem is something, that I do, but I always have that next step where I feel a compulsion to try to solve it or help the person or help the entity or whoever it is. So I think that, I always operate from a perspective of hope. I think that there is upside, and there is a bright side, and I do think most people are fundamentally good. So, for example, if you are, let's say, walking on the Las Vegas Strip, right, and there's tons of tourists, going between casinos, and your wallet falls out of your pocket or something. The vast majority of people didn't fly to Vegas to go steal Chris Voss's wallet. So I would say a good chunk of them, I don't know what the percentage is, 80, 90, maybe it's 95%, maybe it's 98%, would find that wallet and try to get it back to you.
So you're saying 5% of people fly to Vegas to steal my wallet?
But my point is that people are, in my view, not fundamentally evil or wired for bad things. I think to some extent they're wired for indifference when it comes to strangers, but the closer you get to home in terms of them, their immediate family, their extended family, their community, the more they can empathize with it, the more they will try to help. And so a perfect example is, and a lot of people are very judgmental about this, but I think there's a pragmatic reason for it. So if you look at when there's a killing or bomb attack or something here in one of your communities, if you look at the proportion of people affected personally or feeling that grief, the closer you are to it, the more you feel it, right? And so if it happens in your city or town, or if it happens in your state, or it happens in your country, you have a much higher level of affinity and compassion for it than when it happens in Turkey, or it happens in Nairobi, or it happens in these other places. It's not that you don't feel bad for those people, but your empathy, you're so far removed because these are places you may never visit or you've never been to, and so you don't have that same level of connection and connectivity to it. So I think a lot of this is evolutionary, how we respond to things, because we're wired to protect our own, is a survival instinct. And so when you see something happen that's remote, it's like, oh, you almost take a deep breath. It's like, okay, at least we're okay. So there's that part of it. And there's also, it's like, well, I feel bad, but it's so remote and removed. So I think that's a big part of it. So to the extent that we can make people feel empathy for people that are not like us, the more successful we'll be in bringing that good side out in people. And I think the key to it, and this is something I've been toying around with, and I may write an article about it one of these days, is the idea of scarcity thinking versus abundance thinking. And so we, throughout human history, have always operated from a point of view of scarcity. It's always like, hey, you attack the new place and you rape and pillage and take all their stuff, and that's your new place because they have natural resources you want, they have plunder, they have gold, they have whatever else that that you want and need. So that has been the history of mankind. That has been it's. Animals are the same way. And so we operated from the scarce perspective. And so to the extent that we can bring a level of abundance, either real or perceived, to people's lives, the more we free them up to feel empathy towards others. Like this Mexican dude who's trying to, got into the country illegally is not going to take my job, or so I think that there's an economic component to it, but there's also just an emotional component to it. So I think we need to get better at connecting people in a way that they don't feel threatened by others.
It's interesting. You bring up a really interesting point. And how do we all teach each other to learn from that? When I first moved to Vegas, I first moved to Vegas in 1998, and things were pretty good here. And when I moved here again in 2004, it was a wonderful place. Everybody was making money. Everyone was happy. We were going through this crazy, weird inventory phase where people's home prices were doubling every year, and they were making money and they were happy. Everyone was happy. Everyone was, just every interaction you would have, people were friendly and caring, and oh, go ahead. No, you go ahead. No, it was just a wonderful place to be. And after the crash, the economic crash, where so many people lost so much stuff, it just became a prison knife fight here. And I left to California in 2011 because it was just ugly. I mean, you had businesses going out, families losing everything, homes being put on the street, drug use went through the roof. It really just felt like people were angry, whether they were driving cars or whether you bumping into people at the thing. So sometimes I kind of wonder how much thinking of abundance, maybe as a society, we think that way when we have abundance, but when we're dealing with deprivation and struggle, then we turn into this knife fight.
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes from insecurity, right? You feel like, if something happens to you, you won't be able to support your family or make the bills, or if something happens to you, you won't be able to afford, or you can go bankrupt from healthcare costs. So I think that there are fundamental things that we could identify that are sources of insecurity. So to the extent that we could eliminate those, and we can, we don't have a a problem with abundance or resources. We have a problem with distribution of resources. We have more than enough food. We have more than enough land. We have more than enough money. We have more than enough of all this stuff, doctors and what have you. You go category by category. We have it. Now the question is, what is a way to distribute it fairly in a way that the people who worked really hard and do deserve differential rewards for having worked hard for it, and then others who don't have it and are, at some point their despondence is actually going to affect the people that have been successful. So I think that it's in everyone's best interest to find that middle ground and find that construct that works for the vast majority. And it will fundamentally be redistributive, whether it's universal basic income or something else. Personally, I think that universal basic income, for example, a lot of techie types are talking about it, is an interesting idea. I think that what's left missing there is how ill-equipped we are to deal with lots of time and freedom to do whatever or not do whatever. There are a lot of people. So maybe, a third of people will be liberated to pursue their passions. And I think a third of people are just kind of putz around the house and, eat Cheetos and hang out. But then a third of people are really going to get into a lot of trouble, because I really believe in, I'm not a religious person, but even though I use a lot of religious terminology or sayings, but the devil makes work for idle hands. You find me a person with nothing to do all day, I'll find you a person who will find a way to get into trouble, whether it's with drugs, whether it's with porn, whether it's with, food, whether it's with, who knows what it is. So I think that, it's an incomplete solution. I think we haven't done a good job yet of teaching people to make their own way and to make their own satisfaction. And the world no longer does that. Like, if you look at our entire school system, we're pumping out just volumes of good little boys and girls who are supposed to go into these jobs and sit at their desks and type into their computers and have a decent life. That is not how the world works anymore. It's certainly not how it will work going forward. So we're not equipping people to find their whatever that is, and they will have to. There's no other way, because we are well out of the realm of necessity. And so if you think about, like, this is a question I ask people when I do my keynotes and talks. I usually start off with saying, think of all the things you have in your life: your computer, your phone, your furniture, your car, your house. What percentage of those things did the people in your life have anything to do with making it? Or usually it's close to zero. And I'm including the food in your fridge. I'm including your fridge. I'm including your bike. If you think about all the things you actually value, that you actually use, almost nobody in your life is involved with making any of those things. For all intents and purposes, they've been outsourced and automated. They just arrive magically from Amazon. And so we are all optional, and we have not come to terms with a world where we are not needed.
That's an interesting concept, Steve. That's pretty powerful. That's very powerful, actually. So I think my ex-girlfriends used to tell me that.
Specifically as it related to you?
In my world, Chris Voss, you're not needed. Fuck out.
That's terrible. You need a hug, man? Come on.
No, I'm just, this is a good joke. But you bring a powerful point up. In education, I do feel has a lot to do with this. Both my mother and my sister were educators. And for years, decades, we talked about the differences between our education system and, like, Europe, where in Europe they try and find what your forte is at an early age and what you're driven to, and they kind of steer you that way. And I think that is a much better system. And yeah, you're right. We haven't equipped these people to deal with the technology that's out there to teach them some of the new things. And then we really don't have good retraining processes to retrain steel workers and iron workers and people left behind the Rust Belt. I talked about this after the election, where I said, the brilliant minds of Silicon Valley, what they need to do is figure out a way that we can retrain and reemploy those people that are in the flyover states that are trying to drag us back to 1950 in the good old days, and try and move them into the good old days of the future and the freedoms that a lot of us seem to enjoy that are on the coastals. And I don't know what that resolution is. I don't know if there's an app for that. Basically, I haven't been calling out for, but
I actually came up with an interesting plan. I'm writing a post about this now, but I'll give you a sneak peek. I actually think that the idea of home ownership and the American dream has hurt a ton of people, because what it's done is it's anchored them to dead areas that, once the company moves out, your real estate plunges in value. You can't sell your house, and that's, your equity and your life savings are wrapped up in this thing that's no longer valuable, but still gives you a roof over your head. So I actually think that we have done a disservice to people by making them so immobile and so parked in those communities, because a lot of jobs still exist. You look at Mike Rowe from Dirty Jobs. He talks about I think he said, I don't remember the exact number, but I think it was something like 8 million unfilled blue collar jobs around the country. Even if it's half that, that's people that, steel workers and miners and all these other people who, may have voted for Trump out of desperation, who, if they could move out of their communities, should be doing these jobs. And so I think that we're doing a bad job making people mobile enough to respond and flexible enough to respond to where the needs actually are. Look at New York. There's not a person here who knows how to fix their own toilet or change a light bulb. Like, everyone here is, you talk about, what is it, all thumbs? They're all elbows. They will electrocute themselves trying to change a light bulb.
Don't you guys just swear at the light bulbs when they go out? I'm pretty sure.
No, you know what they do? They just go to their phone and they get someone from Handy to come in and do all that stuff. So that's where we are. Do you guys have cockroaches in the bed bug stuff? We should. If we could get them to work together, that would be way better workers.
There's got to be an app for that, Steve. Let's see if we can work on that. You do bring up a good point. In trying to solve this riddle of what do we do with these throwaway people in the Rust Belt, these dead cities that jobs are never going to come back there no matter what Trump does. And it's really sad that he deceives them in telling them a lie that he's going to save them. And they're just going to they're just doubling down and making it worse. Damn you, Levittown, you taught us horrible things in 1960. But yeah, you're right. I mean, our new economy has been that people move away from these bad, desolate, no longer economically viable areas into the cities, and some people stay behind and go, we're going to stick it out here. And unfortunately, sticking out is bad. I talked one time about how what we need to do is we just need to come up with a government program to buy these people's houses out and mass relocate them.
Yeah. That's the solution.
I go through when I travel from California to Vegas, I go through 2 hours of just empty freaking nothing in California. It's just nothing. You could move the whole damn Rust Belt to this area of desert. And we were built in a desert. I'm sure that they have the underground springs that I assume they have the underground springs there. And of course, we could pump water to them. But we could easily relocate these people. It would be painful, but geez, it might be a whole lot easier on everybody just to do this for these folks. Just say, hey, man. And, there's still going to be some people who are going to be like, fuck you. I'm going to stick here with my still and bumfuck West Virginia. And I'm not leaving it because I just rebuilt the outhouse a second time and we turned the single wide into a double wide. So I'm staying here on my homestead. Maybe that's just the whole problem. Our homestead sort of idea of the castle, if you will, and our resistance to change. And I think you are right, because I think in 2004 was my last mortgage, and I moved to Vegas. I sold my home in Vegas. I moved to Vegas to play the home flipping game and make a bunch of money with a couple investors. And once we got here, interviewing realtors and stuff, I found that this was a bubble that was going to pop. And so I never bought a new home. And since then, I've lived a very free and wonderful life where I've moved between California, Utah, Vegas, and now I've kind of think about just moving every 3 years someplace new just to have a new experience. I'm blessed not to have a wife and kids who've got to attend schools, and that has an impact on their lives. But the freedom of being able to do that and move to economically better areas certainly is awesome. And you know, maybe now if they take away the tax deduction for home interest write-offs, maybe it is time to throw that whole baby out the window, the whole Levittown concept.
That deduction is a huge wealth transfer. In fact, I think we should have a much more simplified tax system. You know, unfortunately, this so-called reform is a redistribution upwards rather than a simplification, because what we need is a simplification of the system. And we shouldn't be pumping all of our social programs and social incentives through the tax code. If we want to create a program, let's create a program and let's make it with an expiration date. So that way, if we wanted to continue, we renew it rather than, you know, having it baked into the code forever. We're still doing farm subsidies, which came out in the 1920s, you know, and then we have oil subsidies from the 50s and 60s. It's insanity. Like nothing ever goes away from the tax code. The tax code should be pristine and clean and nothing in it. And if you want to create a program, let's create a program outside of it. But, you know, to your earlier point, you know, it's not always that clear cut because, you know, in terms of moving, you also establish community, you have relationships, you have your family and extended family and friends. So, you know, there is a cost to just picking up and leaving. So I think that, you know, I think that's one of the reasons you see, I forgot the exact number, but I think it's somewhere in the 14 to 15% range of working age males who are not in the job market anymore. So that is a tremendous number. Think about that, 15 to 16% of 18 to, I think it was 64 or 59-year-olds who are not in the workforce at all, not looking for jobs. And I would bet you a good chunk of them are in these states where, you know, factories have moved out and, you know, they maybe have a home or something and they're, you know, can't afford to move or they don't want to move and they're somehow subsisting in these places.
Yeah. Well, think of the crazy idea if we did relocate, if we did take, okay, let's take a large swath of California. And of course, the people who have homes there are going to scream bloody murder because it'll probably affect their home values statewide, but they're already in a crisis now. But if we were to take these steel workers, and these guys, I know who they are, they're blue collar guys, they understand how to do blue collar work and they love it. And so what we do is we say, hey, look, we're going to take you guys and we're going to use you to build a new community and we're going to give you free houses because you're going to do the work for this crap. And we're going to bring you out and you're just going to be like, the people who rebuild this. And because you're blue collars, you're going to be paving roads. You're going to be laying curb. You're going to be doing plumbing. You're going to be doing all this stuff to basically plumb these whole new neighborhoods where we're going to move you to, and out of it and out of this economic growth will become jobs. I mean, it's basically that Levittown, that let's build the Hoover Dam, let's build the San Francisco thing, the jobs and the economic prosperity that came out of a public works thing of that is huge. Because, I mean, it's really sad when I see Trump, you know, going, we're bringing coal jobs back, and people are going, black lung, I get some more.
Right. Yeah, not the jobs we would have envisioned.
Yeah. Can you bring what's that glass stuff that they have that gets in your lungs and kills you?
I don't even know.
Yeah, what it was big in the 40s. They put it in your grandparents' ceiling when you go into your grandparents' ceiling.
Asbestos.
Yeah. Let's bring asbestos back, an asbestos lung. All right, let's do that. Yeah, it's just the insanity of it.
So I think the challenge will be, I think a certain percentage of people will do it and a good chunk will not. I think it'll probably correlate to age, because the older you get, the more of the maybe the frontier spirit starts to dissipate, but also you establish more and more roots wherever you are. You might have, grandkids and kids and all this other stuff. And so I think that there's a higher cost to leaving than if you're in your 20s, for example.
Yeah.
So I think that there will be an immobile percentage of that population.
Yeah. It'll be interesting. So what are they? What has to happen in those communities? Do they have to find some way to retrain, or do they have to die like dinosaurs? And
they have to die off. Unfortunately, I don't want it to be painful, but realistically, if you're, let's think about it realistically. I mean, this is not an indictment of anybody. It's just a basic common sense. If you're 49 years old, let's say, and you're 52 or whatever age, and you've been a coal miner your whole life, or you've been a factory worker somewhere, the likelihood of you being able to just retrain or having the personal motivation to do it, it may happen, but it's tough. It's tough. People, old dogs, new tricks. It's tough. So I think that we need to find a way to make it okay, because right now our entire value system is built around jobs. And you see all these like middle-aged, despondent guys shooting things up and, or just doing other things that are unsavory. A lot of it is this feeling of powerlessness, right? Because you've got to, if you're in that position and you haven't worked for a year or 2 or 3, you start feeling it's emasculating. Our entire identity as men throughout history has been our job. That's it. We don't have any other options. What else are you going to do? You can't opt out of a provider scenario. Who's going to take care of you? So you have to go out there and you have to earn a living. And the minute you can't, and the more that time that takes, it takes a toll psychologically on you. It affects how you feel about yourself. It affects how you feel about others. It affects your ability to look other people in the eye. And so I think that there's a shaming that's going on that we have to find a way to get rid of and make okay. Now, no one wants to be on the dole, because a lot of these people are very proud people. They don't want some Chris Voss or Steve Faktor going, oh well, we figured out universal basic income. Here's your $1,000 a month or $2,000 a month. I think what they want is dignity. And so I think there are useful things that people can do that may not pay a market wage, that we can subsidize to market level wages, or if not market, just survival and pride level wages, that let those people kind of pass on with dignity. But things that are valuable. Maybe they tutor people in something. Maybe they teach them woodworking. Maybe they help out with clean highways or water or environmental stuff. There's stuff to do.
Yeah, there definitely is. The thing that you bring up too about people being trapped by real estate. My mom has a great retirement. She was a school teacher for a long time, so she has a really great retirement and income. But she is trapped by real estate. She would like to move out of her current state, but the problem is with her fixed income and the fact that she bought her home a long time ago, she's paid it down, has incredible equity. She can't move, and she would like to move, but she's trapped by real estate. So it's very valid what you're doing. I actually do have a concept that we could probably use for people that are old and still make them valid in society. Soylent Green.
So for those people who don't know, that was a Charlton Heston movie where they all have this drink that they drink instead of food, and then spoiler alert, all right, turn it off if you don't want to know what the answer is, but it turns out it's people.
Too soon.
Yeah, it's too soon, right? Hashtag too soon.
It was in the 70s.
Yeah, it's made right, exactly. At what point is there no more possibility to spoil anything? Yeah, I think
Lucky
if you
Bill,
haven't seen it by now, yeah. Well, anyway, so it's made out of people, but yeah. Look, we are at this weird place, man. You know, people
maybe
are.
that's where we're going to, Steve. So the green is people.
Well, you know, it's funny. I actually think so. One thing we haven't talked about is how much of our misery is relative rather than absolute. So what I mean by that is it's not that we inherently feel bad about the things that we have or the spouse that we have or don't have or our relationships or the place we live in, but we feel bad in comparison to others. And now, because of social media, the awareness of what others have has been supercharged. It is everywhere. We know what the Kardashians have. We know what the rich kids of Instagram have. We know what all these people have, the housewives of Orange County or whatever county. So everyone everywhere is just shoving their stuff in your face. And in a way, helping to shame us. And you know, it's like, hey, I don't have that. So our misery, or a good chunk of it, I don't know, it could be 50%, could be 80% for some people. A good chunk of it is coming from our hyper awareness of what everyone else has and we don't.
Maybe that really is what's driving our outrage nation, is the FOMO, keeping up with the Joneses. Maybe that's the third.
I think it's a huge part of it. I think it's a huge part. I think Facebook and Instagram especially. Yeah, people see. People never used to know how rich is. They didn't know about the yachts. They didn't know about the parties. They didn't know about the girls hanging off the poolside and everywhere. They didn't know all that stuff. But now you got guys like Dan Bazillion, whatever his name is, Bajillion. I'm butchering his name. I don't know. But he's this guy who lives this playboy lifestyle. Who knows? He inherited his money or however he made it. And you know, he's living this life, and you know, some poor schlub is tuning in and he's like, wait a minute, why don't I have any of this? And that can make a guy, you know, a certain type of guy angry, especially if certain things aren't going right in your life. That's not excusing anything bad that you do, but it's certainly not helping.
You know, this has to be the third theory then. The first theory was the one that you had where you know, people were going through the shit show of adopting this new technology. The theory I had was the middle class is disappearing. I think this may be a very valid one to consider as well, is because the attacks that I've been seeing with the mob and what we call the outrage nation now, where they go on these outrage spurts for 3 days, then they move to the next thing that they rage on, and then the next thing. It seems like the cycle is maybe a little longer. The core seems to be about 3 days of intensity and then maybe 7 to 9 days or whatever. And my circles have been having this discussion. But maybe a lot of that outrage seems to be that you have something that I don't, and you don't deserve it because you're a piece of crap and I'm not, even though deeply I am. And
or you having it makes me feel bad about myself. That I think is an important part of it. It's a shaming of sorts.
You can even look at the Me Too thing and you can say that there's some of that in the Me Too, maybe a lot of it, where people are saying there's not enough for the rest of us, so screw you. I'm not invalidating some of the claims and the claims of rape and other things. I'm not doing any of that. I'm just speaking to the whole of it, where certainly he had keys to a kingdom and riches that he was holding over people's heads, and the real big issue there is that he was using these different ways to extort people to give him certain things in order to get access to that kingdom. And certainly enough people have come out and said, you know, we're tired of that gatekeeper, for very valid reasons. But if you really look at it from that aspect beyond what it is, that's kind of what it was. I mean, Bill Cosby was in the same position. He was number one in Hollywood, you know, couldn't do anything wrong, and people were afraid to call him out of her power. But really, in essence, he was a gatekeeper or an elite. Maybe you do have to look at these are little runs of a French Revolution. We're just going after one person instead of overthrowing a whole government.
I'm not sure we're heading to. I did a episode of my podcast, which now is a good time to mention it, I guess. I do a podcast called The McFuture. You can find it on IdeaFaktory.com or just type in themcfuture.com. And I did an episode titled "Revolution," or "You Think You Want a Revolution," and I actually don't think we're going to go there. I think we will resolve this. I think we're going to go to the precipice. I just can't believe that any revolution can have this many Oreos. Like we just have too much awesome, delicious stuff for us to really, really be that angry or have the respiratory capabilities to really keep that thing going. So I think
they seem to shift. Like I said, the cycle is about 3 days of intensity, maybe 7 to 9 days of real anger, and then it becomes something else. It went from the Me Too campaign seemed to die with the FBI tapes, and then Trump seems to be really tuned into it, where he just goes from one calamity to the next, and obviously he's diverting from something, but he's really good at playing it. I mean, he's really playing a reality show with sweeps teasers every week, really, if you think about it. Only he's doing sweeps every fucking week on us.
Yeah, look, Trump, to try to rationalize him, look, he is what he is. And I saw a comedian talk about this I forgot, I think it was a Joe Rogan podcast. I don't remember who it was, but he made a good point. And that is the greatest shame of the Trump presidency is that it's wasted time. It's 4 years where we don't get to move forward in any way. We don't get to solve any problems because we're just in this retarded back and forth battle with this dope who's tweeting all day. It's a shame more than anything else. Now, I did an episode, I think it was a bonus episode on the McFuture, where I talked about 10 ways that Trump is making us great again, but not by what he's doing for us, but what he is doing to us. And so I think there are a lot of positives that will come out of it. And unfortunately, when you're in it, you don't see them as positives. Just like when you're in the gym, you don't feel that great. You're like, oh man, I can't do another rep, and you feel miserable. But then when you go out and you feel, like your pants are a little bit loose and you feel like really good in the mirror, then you feel like it's been worthwhile. So I think it's that we're paying our dues. This is penance. He is our penance for whatever wrongs we did, and we're going to get through it. It's just that the biggest shame of it is not so much that he's going to start a war. The shame of it is we just don't move forward for 4 years. We putter around.
We look around at each other and go, wow, maybe we need to rethink this whole thing. So here's the big question. Is Trump the bottom, or do we got to go deeper through the trench to get back to life?
I think Kanye might be the bottom. I'm trying to think who the real bottom is.
We need to elect Kanye as president, or Kid Rock, I guess, one to run for Senate.
Kid Rock, I don't think is running. I think that was just a publicity ploy.
Yeah.
But I think our dalliance with reality might have been temporary with these reality stars. So I do think there's a power to celebrity. Here's what we're missing. And this is the thing that I've been thinking about a lot, which is no one carries moral authority anymore. We used to have irreproachable people who everyone universally respected. When they spoke, they spoke to everyone. And because of how fragmented media is and how fragmented opinions are, we've run out of those people. Like you could argue that The Rock or Oprah should be that kind of person, sort of an impartial person who's been successful, has some clout in terms of talking about business or talking about success or talking about these things that we value. Maybe Mark Cuban, maybe, I don't know. There's probably a handful of people that theoretically should have that sort of above the fray type of respect. But what happens is the minute they speak out about an issue that you're against, you automatically shut them out and you don't want to hear anything else. You write them off. Oh, this is a libtard, or this is a Nazi, or this is, whatever your wiring is. So we are no longer in possession of leaders that are irreproachable. And that is the saddest outcome of this outrage nation to me, because I think there are people that are, it's not that they're perfect, but they're certainly worth listening to, and they're making sense even if they contradict a dogma that you've happened to buy into. But because everyone's like, oh, I'm on this team, and so I got to buy into everything this team buys into, and we've lost that ability to evaluate individual issues on their own merits, that's where the problem comes from. And I think that there are people out there that should theoretically have that ability, and we've robbed them of that.
You mentioned a name earlier, and I just realized why everything is going to hell. It's because Oprah's not on TV anymore. All this shit started after Oprah went off TV. It's her fault.
That's interesting.
Fucking bitch.
You know what? It's true. I actually think there isn't something to that, because women can have a very calming effect on the men they're with. And so if Oprah is communicating positive messages, and look, most of her audience was women, but if she's able to do that, and these women are able to calm down the inner beast of all these guys that are like, climbing the walls or doing whatever on social media or in real life, then maybe there was some sort of positive. I don't know that it's measurable in terms of impact, but certainly there's something to that.
Damn you. Maybe just
come back
the president and everything will be fine.
Well, that's the thing. I don't think it'll help, because I think we're in these hyper partisan mentalities where even someone like that can't make a dent. Or maybe she can. I don't know.
Maybe these mobs are people that are scrambling around, that are desperate with FOMO, and they're seeing this guy on Instagram, and they're like, I don't have that, and they're just these flash mobs of outrage nation of 9 days, where they're just angry, and this internal rage of not keeping up with the Joneses on social media is turning them into these little flash mobs that are just running around mobbing up when stupid shit happens. And then unless there's something that impacts them or motivates them in any way, they just don't really care about other things.
And what's most disconcerting about it is a lot of this is happening on a subconscious level. It's not something they're very self-aware of. So when they're reacting to these things and they're lashing out, they may be angry at themselves, or they may be feeling a certain amount of shame because they haven't achieved whatever their dream was, or maybe they don't have a dream, or whatever it is. And as they're, chasing the witch of the day, up there, chasing Quasimodo up the bell tower, their anger is misdirected oftentimes. And so what we're seeing is a large group of people that aren't aware that this is a problem. Yeah. And the lack of awareness is the scary part, because, how do you do mass psychotherapy?
Yeah. We're all going to need it after Trump. That's for sure. We're going to need a psychiatrist as the next president who's going to be like, how long have you been feeling this way? Let's talk about your issues.
Yeah.
But let's talk. That reminds me of a Saturday Night Live bit. What was that one? Michael Myers, you see that one bit with the Jersey or Jewish gal? Let's talk. Maybe it was a Barbra Streisand thing.
I don't remember.
Yeah, but talk amongst yourselves. But anyway, I digress. But yeah, I think you definitely hit on. I like the concept of the witch for a day, where there's that person we lock up in the witch gallows of Salem, in the public square for the flogging and the spitting upon. And then,
but the bell tower is full. That's the problem. There's not enough room in the bell tower. Once you've chased enough witches, that thing like topples over.
But, and we can really think of these as also the windmills of the Man of La Manche, where these people are going at windmills and attacking them from one crazy point to another. It is interesting. Maybe we just have to all do enough mobbing, murdering, and killing, and then look at the blood in our hands and go, maybe this is a bad idea, and maybe we should drink less.
Yeah, well, you know how after every war or years when you commemorate the fallen, you're like, they died for our freedoms. Well, you know what? I actually think there's a lot of people, pee-pee, I just said pee-pee for no reason. A lot of people that are being pilloried for our future freedoms, hopefully, if we go in the right direction.
There are some people being peed on, but evidently that's just for presidents.
Yeah, and usually it's for money. That you don't get that for free.
Yeah,
and the sub actually no, that's not true. On the subway,
90s too.
On the subway platform, you can.
Yeah, you guys have New York. That thing's pretty common out there. So
it is.
Well, Steve, I don't want to take up all your time. I'd love to have you on future podcasts of stuff because we could probably talk forever. And I love your brilliant mind. If I could make love to it, it would. It would just, that just is a sick image that I just created. That,
you know, I would totally Harvey Weinstein your ass.
Yeah,
I'd be chasing you up that bell tower along with all those guys.
I want to make love to your mind. I don't think I've ever said that to another man, Steve. So I'm not sure. I might have to go talk to my psychiatrist.
You know,
I either have a brain fetish, or maybe I just need to get to go with John Travolta and Tom Cruise, and we need to walk out of the closet.
I live in a very gay-friendly town, so you know, nothing shocks or surprises me at this point. So
I want to fuck your brain. I think that's. But I know I love the way you think, Steve. And anybody who does not follow Steve online, please go find him. He is like Dan Rather and a few people that are the voices of reason, the voices of logic, the Sam Harrises of the world that I love to collect. I collect you. No
way. Only Jeffrey Dahmer has used that terminology before. So
Steve is one of those people who keeps me off the San Francisco Bridge and from loading a weapon and putting it in my mouth and going full metal jacket. Jesus.
Oh my God, the responsibility is okay. You can rape my mind. It's fine if that's what it'll take.
Yeah, if you ever read, I went full metal jacket in the bathroom of my home. It's because my world. Because
I'm not doing my job.
It's your fault. Just want you to know that. I hope that you live every day going, is it me? It's like this Stephen Wright joke where he's like, when I was a kid, I saw the commercials. Only you can stop fires. He's like, me? It's all on me. So there you go. Anyway, it was wonderful to have you. Steve, give us your plugs. Tell us where we can find you on the interwebs.
Yes, I'll give you 3 quickies. So my main page is IdeaFaktory. That's for my business where I do innovation work for a bunch of different companies. We have a team of very bright people who go in as a SWAT team, and we help companies figure out the future and bring in startups to enable that future. And then the McFuture podcast, if you want to listen to me drone on about these kinds of things. Actually, we're launching this week with a new episode on healthcare and the future of healthcare. So I think people will really enjoy. I put a lot of work into that. And then coming up for small business, we've got a thing called Growth Factory, where we're going to be helping small business owners with their strategies, with their products and services. So it's going to be a really cool service. I'm really excited about it. So basically bringing all that strategic horsepower that we provide to corporations to small business owners. And so I'm really excited about it.
Yeah, you have a great Facebook group too, which is, I think, the McFactory or the...
No, it's the same. Well, so I have a page, the IdeaFaktory page, but I think you're talking about the McFuture page. It's the same thing. Yeah. Yeah.
And guys, go follow his stuff. It's great. In a world of insanity, in a world of idiots, in a world of 4th grade ideas, I just love reading Steve's stuff. And as you can tell here, I love how he opens my mind and gets me to think about the bigger picture. And I of course, love talking about theories, because to me, the scientific nature of, I've kind of learned this from Sam Harris, is, being able to think about these different theories, even if your brain's going, I don't want to believe that crap, is a real great way to try and understand this world of madness and everything else. So please, I encourage you to go read that stuff, and it will make you smarter, and it will make you grow. And I just love Steve's stuff. I just sit and look at what he writes and what I write, and I just go, why do I? It's like for me, it's like a crayon, some idiot with a crayon writing and filling the lines. And Steve writes this beautiful stuff. So please follow him over there. I can't. Push that up. Thanks for being on the show, Steve.
Chris, I changed my mind. You can have sex with my mind. Go ahead. I mean,
all right. I have a brain fetish. I go to brainfetish.com. That's where I get all my porn. And I just have this necrophiliac sort of thing where I don't have sex with people that are dead. I just fuck their brain. I just pull their brain out. I don't know what's going on here, man. I need a therapist.
Well, thank you.
Clearly.
Well, but before you dig yourself this deeper hole, I want to thank you for the kind words. I really appreciate it, and hope.
Well, thank you, Steve. Thanks for being on the show. I'd love to have you more because I love talking about more theories, and I should say too, Steve gets some great guests. I don't know what he does to get them. He's brilliant. There might be some sexual favors in there, but he's got. I mean, you've got like I think Ross Jeffries or
Jim Jeffries, the comedian. I've had Jesse Ventura. I've had Larry King. I've had economist Joseph Stiglitz is coming out this season.
So when you get sick of all the B-list celebrities other than Steve on my show, you can go to his podcast and you can listen to really cool people that you actually know who they are and know that they have a brilliant mind. So be sure to subscribe to his podcast as well. Anyway, thanks, Steve.
I loved it, Chris. Thank you for having me.
Enjoy New York and stay safe over there, brother. And
thanks, man. You too.
Thanks, everyone in our audience, for subscribing and being the thing. Be sure to subscribe to us on, of course, iTunes, Google Play, I forget the third one, but you know what it is. You can find us in the podcast things. Be sure to give us a like, subscribe to us on YouTube, hit that bell notification button, go to patreon.com/Chris Voss. And of course, you can find me all over the internet on Chris Voss. Thanks, Steve, for coming by. Thanks to our audience.
Chris.
And we'll see you guys next time.
Thanks, guys. Bye.